Om Sarvadharmasthapagastam Sarvadharmaswarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. We are studying here Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master, second part, as the spiritual aspirant or struggle or sadhak, and we are in the chapter 8. The name of the chapter in Bengali is Pratham Chari Vatsarer Sadhanar Pratham Chari Vatsarer Shesh Katha. No. Bengali heading is Pratham Chari Vatsarer Shesh Katha. Pratham Chari Vatsarer Shesh Katha. So to understand that, because he is describing sadhana and sadhana, how the first 4 years of sadhana. But the actual heading is Pratham Chari Vatsarer Shesh Katha. If we literally translate it into English, it will become the remaining things about the first 4 years. So to make it clear, it is all right that first 4 years of his sadhana. Not the last part. We are seeing all this, that so many things are not last part. From the beginning he is telling, so things which have not been told are being told. So that is called remaining things. That is the meaning of the Shesh Katha. So the remaining things of the story of the first 4 years of sadhana. And what we are studying about that sadhana, comparatively what Master was feeling before and after that sadhana had reached such a state. Not only gradual, but sometimes drastic changes in his behavior that is being described. And so, you have read 6 paragraphs of this, and that was last 2-3 paragraphs. Why he practiced again? Because when he had already seen Mother, and the various reasons are being stated. One is that to tally with the scriptures, and one is that to validate the scriptures. His sadhana was not at all for himself, but to validate the scriptures so that our life will fructify with the help of the guidance of the scriptures. And now we read para 7. The aspirant realizes God when true eagerness arises in him. How much of that eagerness was there in the Master's life? Now the first point, true eagerness. In the Shastras, Kathopanishad and Mundakopanishad at least, that is stated as the only means of sadhana. Let us understand that shloka a little, that mantra. Nayam Atma pravachanena labhyo na medhaya na bahuna shrutena yam eva esha vrunute tena labhya tasesha atma vivrunute tanung swa. Now, that which we feel usually as the essentials of sadhana have been stated and said, by this you do not get the Atma. Pravachanena na labhyo. Pravachan does not mean discourse. Pravachan means repetition of Shastras. Part. By that, Atman is not obtained. Path and all that is for purification of the Vani, purification of the mind. By that, Atman is not realized. The Medhaya. Meda is Granthartha Dharana Shakti. That means the spiritual scriptures have hidden meaning, deep meaning. And to catch that meaning, that is called Medha. So you may understand the inner points of the scriptures, but that is not going to lead you to Brahmajnan. Then, na bahuna shritena, then go on listening to Shastra after Shastra. That will not give you realization. Then what will give? So, yam eva esha vrunute tena labhya. Yam atmanam esha sadhako vrunute. Vrunute means varana, choosing. Tena labhya. By that sadhaka, this is realized. Or, Mundaka Shankar's commentary, if you see, Tena means by that choosing, this sadhaka gets. So the sadhaka who chooses Atman, by that choosing, gets it. What is the nature of getting? Tasya esha atma vivrunute tanum swa. Tanum is body, here it means nature, swarupa. Tasya is esha atma, to him. Tasya here means to him. Esha atma, this Atman, vivrunute, opens up, reveals, swam tanum, reveals his own nature. Now the question is, Vrunute. Ramanuja has commented upon it in a very different way. Yam sadhakam, esha atma, vrunute, tena sadhakena labhya. Yanyam, the person, the sadhak, the devotee, whom this Atman chooses, to him he reveals. So it does not depend upon the sadhak's effort at all. And this we can say the God's grace. Now in Shankar's commentary, God's grace is described in the fourth line because the realizing Atman means Atman revealing its nature in our consciousness. So finally it is the Atman which is revealing. But what is this choosing now? We know an example I shall give. In the olden days, the princesses were married through Swayamvar, choosing by themselves. Now there is a story. And the story, a historical story, that is Nala Damayanti. Damayanti was Vidarbha Rajakanya and she wanted to marry Nala. And a Swayamvar was fixed. Now the gods, because of Damayanti's beauty, some gods wanted to marry her. But they were sure that if she sees us gods and she is Nala, then she will marry Nala only. So what did they do? Gods. So they assumed the form of Nala. So when Damayanti enters the Sabha, she sees 5 Nalas there. She immediately understands there cannot be 5 Nalas. So one of them is the real Nala and the others must have been. Gods are supernatural beings. So she prays to gods. Oh gods, please reveal your own nature because I want to marry Nala only. And the god had 2 plies. So I stated this story to tell you that choosing means choosing God only at the cost of everything in life. That is choosing. And what it means? Yearning, panting, eagerness. So this is the meaning of the word choosing. So all these are there, pravachana, meda, shruti. But unless the aspirants' eagerness, we may call it 10%, unless the aspirant's eagerness becomes 10%, even if a little digression is there, he will not realize God. That is the meaning. Now the next line here says, how much of that eagerness was there in the master's life? So we are imagining 100% eagerness. If you try to judge Sri Ramakrishna, it will be 1,000 times eagerness. We cannot match it. But as in everything we have been telling, that absolute ideal model is God's sadhana. So don't say that if he is a man, if he is not a man, why did he do this sadhana? Which sadhana? See this eagerness in sadhana, not only incarnation. Why Swami Vivekananda has called him Avatar Varishtaya, that we understand here. I would say, we'll read the description now, but unimaginable eagerness, which will not come in our life is a different thing, which will not come even in our imagination, but it is a fact in his life. So now let us read it. We have said before that during the first 4 years of his sadhana, the master depended for God realization mainly on, only on, his intense eagerness. Only on his intense eagerness. Vyakul agrahi, only. For God realization, mainly means there are some other things, but there was no other thing. For God realization only on his intense eagerness. No one came to him at that time to help him in his spiritual progress by guiding him along the path prescribed by the scriptures. Therefore, that we have discussed, that is in the previous paragraph, that it is not conditioned thinking. Therefore, now the only word comes. Therefore, the only means he had recourse to was the intense eagerness, which is the common requisite of all sadhanas. So, the main point in realizing God is eagerness. We are doing some sadhana. What for? To increase that eagerness. To make that eagerness sarvagrasi, consuming all other desires. Sri Ramakrishna has said, Anurag Vak. That means in the forest there are so many smaller animals, and there is the tiger, Vak. And that tiger devours all other animals. So many desires are there in the beginning in the sadhak's mind. But that love of God as that eagerness swallows all of them. Nothing remains except eagerness for God. So, that is the common element of all sadhana. The form of sadhana may differ, but it has to contain that eagerness. Common requisite of all. As the master had the vision of the Divine Mother with the help of eagerness only, it is also proved that an aspirant may have God vision similarly, even without any external aid, because he has done so. But we forget very often to reflect how great must be the degree of intensity of this eagerness in order that one may reach one's end that way. Sri Ramakrishna himself has taught. And that's why when we read his words, we feel God relation very easy. Sri Ramakrishna says, if 3 days and nights you weep for God, you will realize Him. And then making it still short, he says, for 24 hours, if you can weep for God, you will realize Him. He stands guarantee for that. We feel it's very easy and then start weeping. And then after 10 minutes, we may stop weeping unconsciously, or we will forget for what we were weeping. This is our state. So this weeping is not emotion. This is a deep-rooted hankering, eagerness. So it appears very small, it appears very easy, but it is not that easy. Now, in Sri Ramakrishna has said to his disciples, I have done 16 annas. It is enough for you if you do 1 anna. So by comparing this, we need not be depressed, we need not be baffled, oh, we can never reach that. Not at all. 1 anna for his own disciples, who are very great. So we may deduce for us 1 paisa is enough. But that is the ideal sadhana model. So, but we forget very often to reflect how great must be the degree of intensity of this eagerness in order that one may reach one's end that way. That way means only through eagerness. This becomes clear to us if we study the Master's life at this time. We have seen that under the impulse of that intense eagerness, his firm physical and mental habits and impressions expressed in his actions and feelings, physical habits, mental habits, mental impressions. How we know them? Expressed in his actions and feelings, such as eating, sleeping, shame, fear, etc. Through all his actions, the old impressions are showing, or physical and mental habits are showing. Vanished into thin air, that is about the sanskara, impression. Impressions vanished into thin air. For us to conquer our small habits becomes difficult. Samava durati krama, they say. Eating, sleeping, shame, fear, etc. vanished into thin air. He paid no attention even to the preservation of his life. So that is where the eagerness has reached, and we saw he went to cut his own body and the mother appeared. In Marathi there is a line, देवाच्या सख्यत्वासाठी पडाव्या जीवलगांसी तुटी सर्व अर्पावे शेवटी प्राण तोही वेचावा. सख्यत्वासाठी, for the friendship with God, we will have to break all our connection with all our relations or all those we thought our own, jivalaga. We have to cut off our connection and we have to dedicate everything to Him. And in the end, we have to give up our life for Him. So, he paid no attention even to the preservation of his life, let alone physical health. So, health was there. He had perfect health from childhood. But he did not care for it when he entered sadhana. And so it was all shattered. And he never thought what will happen to my physical health. Otherwise, he would never have done that sadhana with that eagerness. The master said, up till now, Saradanji's description, now master's own words. As there was no attention at all at that time to the cleaning of the body, natural, shaucha, santosha and all that, they are lower things. So, no attention at all at that time to the cleaning of the body. The hairs of the head became long and got matted owing to dirt and dust adhering to them. We cannot imagine you. At the time of meditation, the body used to become motionless like the trunk of a tree. How much motionless? Thinking it to be an inert thing. Birds came and remained sitting on the head without any hesitation and stirred up the dust in the hair in search of small particles of rice. Again, impatient on account of the separation from the Divine Lord. We have seen that. The nearer you are, the more intense you feel the separation. I rubbed my face against the ground so vehemently. So no question of physical health is that it got cut and bruised and bled in many places of face. I had no consciousness of how the whole day slipped away in different forms of sadhana. In prayer, meditation, devotional exercises, offering of the self, and so on. Whole day. When afterwards, at the approach of the evening, conch shells were blown and bells rang for arati, I remembered that the day was at an end. That much consciousness, huh? Whole day is going on, and the conch and all that. So the day has gone. Another day passed in vain. In vain because he has not realized God. And I had not yet seen the mother. Intense sorrow seized me and made the heart so restless that I could no longer remain calm. I threw myself violently on the ground, saying, Mother, thou hast not shown thyself to me even yet. I filled the quarters with wailing, quarters disha by wailing, and struggled on account of pain, mental pain. People said he has got colic pain and that is why he is crying so much. Now this sound reached him, but no response. So that is Master said. When we were with the Master, he told us time and again those events of the time of his sadhana in order to bring home to us the necessity for intense eagerness of heart for the realization of God. So all this is describing not to show his glory, but to show the necessity of eagerness. And his intense eagerness is the model. And said regretfully, people shed comparative. People shed floods of tears at the death of their wives, children, and the like, or at the loss of worldly possessions. But who do so because they have not realized God? Yet they say we called on him so much and still he did not show himself. How much you are sure? Let them but once, not even one day, huh? Let them but once weep for God with such eagerness. Such eagerness. And let me see whether he keeps himself back without revealing himself. Once. These words used to sting us to the quick. When we heard them, it became clear to us that he could speak so assuredly only because he had found them true early in his life. So he is telling this afterwards. So Saradananda Swamiji is connecting that because he has done this in sadhana, so he is telling. The master followed in the Mahavir's footsteps and practiced the sadhana of the Das Seva. So now some other sadhanas are coming within that 4 years. Sadhana of the Das Seva. Mahavir here means Hanuman, Maruti. Mahavir does not mean a great hero here. Mahavir Hanuman. So that one should understand. Huh? He followed in the Mahavir's footsteps. That means he imitated, he followed whatever Hanuman did, because Hanuman is the best example of Dasya Bhav. One funny incident comes to my mind from the TV serial on Ramayana. After conquering Lanka, Rama, when he was coming back, on Hanuman's request, he visited Hanuman's house and met his mother. And Rama is praising Hanuman that without him I could not have won Ravana. Then Hanuman, out of his humility or consciousness, says, Mother, he did everything, only is praising me. The mother became angry. You made him do everything? Then why? I sent you there. I sent you as his das. You should not allow him to do everything. You should have done everything. This is a funny incident. And Rama is telling he did everything. Without him, I could not have won the war. So that is the Dasya Bhav. The master did not rest satisfied with having only the vision of the Divine Mother during the first 4 years of his sadhana. So he did not require 4 years to realize Mother. And as already discussed, why he did other sadhana. To prove the harmony of religions. His mind was naturally attracted towards Raghuveer, his family deity. So first, not that he gave up his mother, huh? All his sadhanas were completing one sadhana, his mind went to the other. And this also is because his incarnation, he could do quickly and go to other sadhana. It does not preach us traveler that do this sadhana for some time and do that sadhana for some time. That is not to be learned from him. But he has done all sadhanas in the same body so that they did not contradict or fight with each other. That is the lesson. So naturally he was attracted towards Raghuveer, his family deity. After he had had the vision of the Divine Mother when he was in the Bhavamukha state. Bhavamukha, we have understood in detail through Guru Bhav Purvarga. Knowing that with the help of devotion, it was possible to have, like Mahavir Hanuman, the vision of Ramachandra, he engaged himself in sadhana, assuming Mahavir's attitude. For the purpose of attaining perfection in the Dasya, the master said that thinking of Mahavir incessantly at that time, he became so much absorbed that he forgot altogether for some time his separate existence. That is the intensity. And individuality. At that time, said the master, I had to walk, take my food, and do all other actions like Mahavir. I had to do. Because thinking of Hanuman all the time, he became identified with that. I did not do so of my own accord, but the actions so happened of themselves. Absorption is 100%, so actions are following that. He did not copy. he was following. And following so perfectly that it appeared that he is copying. I tied my cloth round my waist so that it might look like a tail. Automatically, and walked jumping because like monkey. I ate nothing but fruits and roots. So much change, yeah? Where are the old sanskaras? Gone, vanished, because there was no old sanskara. Which again, I did not feel inclined to eat when skinned. Fruits, nuts, not skinned. Eat them as it is. I spent much of my time on trees and always cried, Raghuveer, Raghuveer, with a deep voice. Impossible beyond all imagination. Both my eyes assumed a restless expression like those of the animals of that species. And it is marvelous that the lower end of the backbone lengthened at that time by nearly an inch. Coccyx. Coccyx, that lowest end of the backbone, increased by 1 inch, like the tail. He tied his cloth and all that, but the actual tail increased because the mind makes the body. And our mind cannot undergo so much change that body will change. When we heard the last mentioned fact, we asked, Sir, does that part of your body continue to be so even now? They could have seen it. He said, no. In course of time, it assumed slowly its previous natural size when the mastery of that mood over the mind had ceased. So Dasya Bhava, Hanuman like it came. And when that Bhava, he took some other Bhava, gradually it went back. The description of the vision of Shri Sita during the master's sadhana of Dasya Bhakti. An extraordinary vision and experience came to pass in the life of the master when he practiced the Dasya Bhakti. So people quarrel whether this was true, this happened or not. If they read Sri Ramakrishna's life once, that vision and experience was so novel, so different from his previous ones, that it was deeply imprinted on his mind and was always fresh in his memory. He said, one day at that time I was sitting under the Panchavati, not meditating, merely sitting, when an incomparable, effulgent female figure appeared before me, illumining the whole place, light coming out. It was not that figure alone that I saw there, but also the trees and plants of the Panchavati, the Ganga and all other objects. That is the uniqueness. In Bhav Samadhi, one when sees God, it does forgets all the world. But here, with the gross eyes, he is seeing the things around him and something strange he is seeing. I saw that the figure was that of a woman, for there were in her no signs of here woman not to distinguish from a man, but distinguish it from a goddess. I saw that the figure was that of a woman, for there were in her no signs of a goddess, such as the possession of three eyes, etc. But the extraordinary, spirited, and solemn expression of that face, manifesting love, sorrow, compassion, and endurance, was not generally seen even in the figure of goddesses. Human, superior than goddesses is only incarnation. Looking graciously at me, that goddess woman, so now that is the best expression, goddess appearing as woman, was advancing from north to south towards me with a slow, grave gait. I wonder who she might be. When a black-faced monkey came suddenly, nobody knew whence, and sat at her feet, only sat at her feet, came suddenly, nobody knows from whence. উপশব্দ করিয়া আসিয়া তার পদপ্রান্তে লুটাইয়া পড়িল. Oh, beautiful expression. Huh? So, we'll like to try to translate this literally in English. Huh? Came suddenly and making the sound oop. That means jumping. Fell down at her feet. Lutaya podilo. Slept. Fell down. Fell down like Sashtanga Pranama Dandava. Not sat at her feet, huh? Fell down at her feet. And someone within my mind explained Sita, because that is Hanuman. Sita, who was all sorrow all her life, Janma Dukkhini. First in Ravana's place, secondly, Rama gave her up. Sita, the daughter of King Janaka, Sita to whom Rama was her very life, saying mother repeatedly, I was then going to fling myself at her feet like that Hanuman. When she came quickly and entered this, showing his own body. Thakur's every experience of every god is like that. They enter into him. Overwhelmed with joy and wonder, I lost all consciousness and fell down. So external consciousness gone after the vision, after she entered him. Till then he was seeing her, Panchavati and everything. And when she entered into him, he fell down unconscious. Before that, I had had no vision in that manner without meditating or thinking. So meditating, thinking, you change your level of consciousness. That was not there. That was the first vision of its kind. I've been suffering like her all my life, perhaps, because I saw first of all Sita, who was miserable from her very birth. Here, a footnote is important. The author, Saradananda Swamiji, has told about it to some, including the translator, made a gift of her smile to the master. So those who saw the master smile knew how she smiled. Now understand? Janama Dukkhini they are telling, and smile is there. So that smile does not depend upon any dukkha or sukha outside, because bliss is the nature of Atman. In spite of all this, that smile comes. And that she has gifted to the master. So those who have seen Thakur smile, we should know how Sita smiled. The master planted the Panchavati with his own hands. So another event, Panchadashi were heard again and again, but that had become old. So Master planted a Panchavati in the order given near that Panchavati by his own hands. Feeling the need for a suitable sacred place for practicing austerities, the Master expressed to Hriday a desire to plant a new Panchavati at that time. Now, Panchavati appears to mean 5 banyan trees, but actually it is a technical word in the Tantras, in the Skanda Puran from that is quoted, 5 trees in a particular arrangement, a round of 5 trees in a particular arrangement. Skanda Puran, Ashwatha Bilva Vruksham, Vata Dhatri Ashokakam, Vati Panchakam Ityuktam, Sthapayet Panchadikshu cha. Ashwatham Sthapayet Prachi, Bilvam Uttara Bhagata, Vatam Dakshinata Dakshina Bhage, Vatam Paschima Bhage, Tu Dhatrim Dakshinata Satha, Ashokam Vanidik Sthapyam, Tapasyartham Sureshwari, Madhye Vedim Chaturhastam Sundarim Sumanohara. English. Ashwatha, the holy fig tree, they say. Ashwatha is the people tree. The Bilva tree, the Amlaki tree, the Banyan tree, and the Ashoka tree, collectively called the Panchavati, should be planted in 5 directions for the purpose of practicing austerities. The holy fig tree, the people tree, Ashwatha tree, should be planted to the east, Bilva to the north, Banyan to the west, Amlaki to the south, and Ashoka to the southeast. So 4 and 1 in the middle. Ashoka to the southeast. And a beautiful altar 4 cubits square and attractive to the mind should be made in the middle. That is Panchavati. Hriday said, this small pond called the duck pond, ducks used to come, so it is called duck pond, Hans Pukur. Near the Panchavati was then re-excavated, and the piece of land near the old Panchavati was filled up with the mud from that pond and made level. The Amlaki tree, therefore, under which the master used to meditate before, was destroyed. The master then planted with his own hands a Ashwatha tree to the west of the place where the sadhana hut now stands, and made Hriday plant the saplings of a banyan tree, an Ashoka tree, a bilva tree, and an Amlaki tree. And planting saplings of the holy basil, Tulsi, and Aparajita creepers. He had the whole place hedged with the help of a temple gardener named Bhartavari, in the wonderful way described elsewhere, that he had a desire to fence it, and from the Ganges, small sticks like the pegs, and rope to tie them, and the cutter and all that, together came there. So he called Bhartavari, pulled it up, and put a fence. So here, described elsewhere, somewhere we shall describe. The holy basil plants and the Aparajita creepers grew up so high and dense in a short time on account of the master's regular watering and care bestowed on them, that no one from outside could see him when he sat for meditation within the enclosure. The master practiced Hatha Yoga. He practiced Hatha Yoga to show that it is useless in spiritual life. So that also is through demonstration, not theoretical. After Rani Rasmani consecrated the Kali temple, the holy travelers such as monks, desirous of visiting Puri and Ganga Sagar, began to accept the hospitality afforded by the devout Rani and to rest for a few days at Dakshineshwar temple when going to and returning from those two places of pilgrimage. The master said that many perfected souls and great sadhakas used to come there from that time. Instructed by one of them, he seems to have practiced at this time pranayama and other exercises of Hatha Yoga. One day while he was describing to us the following incident regarding Haladhari, he hinted at it. He forbade us later to practice the Hatha Yoga exercises because he himself practiced them and knew their results. Approached by some of us for instruction on it, he said to us, these practices are not for this age. Living beings are short-lived and their lives depend on food in the Kali Yuga. Where is the time in this age to practice Raja Yoga? In other words, to call on God after making the body form by the practice of Hatha Yoga? So that is the idea of the Hatha Yoga. When we try to practice Raja Yoga or any yoga, the body becomes old, body gets disease, we die early, then next birth. So much time and energy are wasted. So a sect thinks that let them make their body firm and strong and live long. They will not die quickly. So that they can do sadhana. That is the idea behind Hatha Yoga. So in Kali Yuga, in this age, there is no possibility. While doing Hatha Yoga itself, our life will become over. Again, if one wants to practice those exercises, one has to live constantly with a teacher perfect in that yoga and follow for a long time very hard rules regarding food, rest, exercise, etc., according to his instruction. The slightest deviation from those rules produces diseases in the sadhaka's body and in many occasions causes even his death. Therefore, it is not necessary to practice these things. Besides, main reason. Besides, is it not for the purpose of restraining the mind that one has to restrain the vital air by practicing pranayama, etc.? So pranayama means regulation of breath. With the help of that, regulate the mind. That is the idea in Hatha Yoga. Kumbhak also is there. For the purpose of restraining the mind, that one has to restrain the vital air by practicing pranayama, etc. Kumbhak is a part of pranayama, restraining the breath. You will see that both mind and vital forces will of themselves be gradually restrained by meditation and devotion to God. So you start meditation and let your bhakti increase, automatically the breath is restrained. So you need not go through body to the mind here. Human beings have short lives and possess little capacity in the Kali Yuga. This is why the divine Lord has graciously made their path to realization of Him so easy to tread. In this age, if the feelings of anxiety and void, like those felt at the death of one's wife or son, are felt for God, and these last even for 24, here that 24 hours come. Only in one's mind is bound to reveal himself. But, 1 minute, huh? Okay, it is like that. Curse by Haladari. In connection with this Hatha Yoga, one incident is being described. We have told the reader elsewhere in the Leela Prasanga that the devout sadhakas who are the followers of the smritis very often have recourse to tantras in practice. Smartas, they follow smritis, and for sadhana, they follow tantras. Such persons belonging to the Vaishnava denomination, Vaishnava tantras, pursue the path of sadhana, parakiya love. That means loving somebody's wife, not yours. We also told the readers that Haladari was a very learned Vaishnava and a faithful observer of the scriptural rites and practices. He also pursued secretly that path of sadhana sometime after he was employed for the worship of Radha and Govinda. People came to know this in time and started whispering, but there was a belief prevalent that whatever he said of anybody came true. So nobody was bold enough to discuss or cut jokes on it in his presence, lest he should incur Haldari's displeasure. The master too came to know of that practice of his elder cousin. Finding that people were talking of it and calumniating him behind his back, the master, outspoken and fearless as he was, told Haldari everything plainly. Thereupon the latter became very angry and said, "Dare you, though being younger, despise me thus? Blood shall gush out of your mouth." The master tried to appease him in various ways and to remove his anger by explaining the reason for his speaking so to him, but he did not give ear to whatever the master said. One day, shortly after this event, at, 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 at about 8 or 9 p.m., the master felt a creeping sensation in his palate and actually blood began to gush out of his mouth. The master said the color of that blood was like that of the juice of kidney bean leaves. It was so thick that a portion of it fell away from the mouth and a portion coagulated within and was hanging like the aerial roots of a banyan tree from the lips near the front teeth. I tried to stop the bleeding, but the bleeding, I tried to stop the bleeding by pressing a piece of cloth against the palate, but the bleeding could not be stopped. I was much afraid to see it. All came running when they heard of it. Haldari was performing the service in the temple then. He also was apprehensive and came quickly when he heard of it. When I saw him, I said to him with tears in my eyes, "Cousin, just see the condition you have brought on me by your curse." He also wept to see that sorrowful condition of mine. A good sadhu had come that day to the temple. He also came there when he heard the noise and examining the color of the blood, and this always used to happen. Somebody would come there. And the spot within the mouth through which it was coming out, he said, there is no fear. It is very good that the blood has come out. I find you practice yoga, hatha yoga. As a result of that practice, the mouth of your sushumna opened and the blood of the body was flowing to the head. It is very good that instead of flowing to the head, it of itself made a channel leading to the mouth and came out. Had this blood reached your head, you would have been in Jada Samadhi, which could by no means have come to an end. Inert one becomes. The mother of the universe has some special purpose to accomplish with your body. That is why I think she has saved it. Hearing these words of the holy man, I was, as it were, brought back to life. Haldari's curse thus came true by way of accidental coincidence and was transformed into a boon. Accidental coincidence he mentioned because of the Hatha Yoga practice it had come. But because of Haldari's curse, it was coming out. Now, this brings us to Haladari's views regarding the master changing again and again. We shall see it tomorrow. Very interesting topic within those time. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakasvam Sarvadharma Swarupakah Acharyana Mahacharyo Ramakrishnayate Namaha Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanam.